Hi, welcome to my guitar channel. Today's video is going to be on scales. This topic is way too deep to be covered in just one video. There are entire YouTube channels dedicated just to music theory alone, and there's a really good reason for that. This video is going to be the first one released in my scales series that's going to be released over the next couple of months. This video would be a success for me if you walked away from it wanting to practice your scales, wanting to learn, wanting to apply the information that you learn from there to the music that you either learn or write. So let's dive in. Point number one. All Western music is based from scales. If you know what scale the song you're trying to learn or you're trying to write is in, you're going to have a lot easier time figuring it out. If you're learning the song by ear, you're going to have a fairly solid idea of where they're leading to and what you need to play the exact same thing. Quite simply, it takes the guesswork out of learning. Not only that, if you're learning from a tab and something sounds wrong, you're going to have a pretty good idea as to why it's wrong. You're going to be able to hear the music, play along with the tab, and realize that there's something going wrong here, very quickly be able to fix it. Pretty much learning scales gives you the power to question what you're hearing and apply it to your instrument and make it make sense from many different angles. And not only that, if you're relying just on tabs, what if the tab's wrong? If you're not able to hear why it's wrong, or you're not able to know that, hey, that note doesn't actually belong in the scale, why is it played there? Is that what the composer wrote, or is that something that's just weird that the person who wrote the tab, whoever that happens to be, when you look at it, you're going to go, what is this note? It doesn't belong in the scale. It doesn't sound like it belongs in the song. Why is that written in the tab? And then very quickly you'll be able to know why. Maybe someone just made a mistake. When I was in high school, I had a mate that played a song that we both knew very well for a performance. He got a tab online and I had the official tab book. I knew how to play the song, and when he played it for an exam, he played it wrong, right? No one would know if they hadn't heard the song, but he simply played the song wrong. He had no ability to be able to hear that it was going wrong. He just played what the tab was written. I don't like that. I like knowing that I'm getting things right, even if it's harder on the outset. It's well worth it in the long run. Reason number two, scales are the building blocks to all music. If you understand the relationship of the notes and why they work together, you're going to understand why the music that you love works. You're going to be able to recreate that in your own original way. It's really straightforward when you know what you're doing. Okay? For an example of how the relationships in music work, a chord in its most simple form is built from the first, the third, and the fifth scale degree. I'm going to make quite a few videos on this topic alone, so don't worry if you don't understand it. I simply cannot go into it here. Reason number three, you'll be able to clearly communicate with all other musicians you come into contact with. It doesn't matter if they play bass, piano, clarinet, which is a transposed instrument, bagpipes, or hurdy-gurdy, which a hurdy-gurdy is a real instrument. Look it up, they're really cool. If you know your scales, you'll be able to play, communicate, and write music with anyone from anywhere. It will open it so many doors, it's ridiculous. Reason number four, you'll be able to improve your technique beyond anyone around you. That is pretty self-explanatory in its own. Taking a scale, it's going to put your fingers in pretty much every combination that's possible, and then not only that, you start changing up the order, you start changing up things, and then all of a sudden, every single thing you hear on the radio, on whatever you listen to, all of a sudden it'll make sense because you realize that it all boils down to this information. It is insane what scales can do for you. And finally, reason number five, writing music. You'll know what the good notes are to play, in what context, how to get the moods that you want to get out of different songs. I believe that we've all had those moments where we hear this song that we've never heard before. It just comes to you and it's fully realized. There's full instrumentation, there's lyrics, there's everything, there's different instruments coming in and out. And for me, it usually occurs when I'm really ridiculously tired, or and I just can't get to sleep, and I'll be on my way drifting off and I'll just hear this insane song. Before I knew my scales, I'd jump out of bed, I'd pick up my guitar and I'd try and figure out so I could record it in. And I always forgot it by the time that I'd figured anything out, and what I was left with was a crappy, unusable riff. Now, I get up, I spend 2 minutes figuring it out, and then I record it in, I get back into bed. I feel awesome because when I wake up in the morning, I know that I can start working on a song that no one's ever heard before and see if it's actually what it sounded like when I initially heard it in my head. They're the five main reasons in my head. Now, there are a million other reasons, so this list is in no way comprehensive. It's just the things that no one ever told me and that I thought were really important to be able to actually explain why for you. Bonus round, bullshit beliefs. You don't want to learn scales because you don't want to be restricted to writing stuff that is uncreative or unoriginal. I understand this bullshit belief. I had it for a long time. But the first thing that I'm going to say to this belief is think about it. How possibly, if you knew your scales, would you be limited to making sounds that are unoriginal or crap? If you had a riff that needed notes that weren't in a scale, use those other notes. It's not hard. It's the idea of learning the rules just to break them, and there will be a whole video on that sentence alone. When you know your scales, you're aware of what the standard sounds are. You're aware of what notes work and what notes don't. If you need to use another note because for your idea you need the other note that doesn't exist in the scale, use the other note. Don't be restricted. I've never written something and had a note that's out of scale and gone, no, I can't use that note because it's not in scale. It's ridiculous. Why would I let a scale dictate how things sound? I take the notes out of the scale that I want to use, and if one doesn't work, I throw it away. If I want to use a different note, I put it in. It doesn't matter. All as I know is that there is a building block from me to work on. That is a very, very important step to take out a lot of guesswork. Then there's a standard argument that James Hetfield doesn't know his scales and he was writing some of the best riffs out there. Okay, I get that. James does write some amazing riffs, but the problem is the assumption that it's because he doesn't know theory, he's able to write these amazing riffs. It's just simply wrong. Anyone who knows their scales knows that James, most of what he writes is in a clearly defined, simple scale. James would be well aware of certain frets that sound better than other frets, and he would use them as defaults. Just because he doesn't have a label for them doesn't mean he doesn't know the same information. It's just harder for him to communicate that stuff. What James lacks for in knowledge, he makes up for in persistence. It's much harder to write when you don't know where you're going, when you don't know what notes on the guitar are going to make the sounds that you want the guitar to make, versus knowing all that stuff back to front. James knows all that stuff back to front, he just doesn't know how to label it. If you spend time learning the notes that sound better, and then when you don't want to use those notes, when you need to use other notes to get the sound of your song out, that's when you got power. Do it. Don't be lazy about this. So to summarize this whole video, it's learn your scales. I'll be making more videos on this topic and that will expand things in much, much greater detail. I have no idea how big this series is going to be because there is just such a massive amount of information that needs to be covered. I'm going to do what I can to make it structured and give you examples and give you tools to actually work on stuff and get creating in your own way, because I think it's very important as being any instrumentalist that you're writing as much as you are learning other people's stuff. Thanks for watching that, everyone. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Give a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to hear more. When I was making this video, I was thinking of a way that I could give a really concise demonstration on knowing the rules and breaking them and making a cool sound relying on your ears, but still being able to identify what's actually happening in the music. I'll leave you with this riff and we'll break it down in another video.